doing with my woman?
His fist connects with the wrong man's jaw. That is the only way to describe it. Marcus swings, big, drunk, certain, and the man he hits does not fall. He does not flinch.
He does not even blink.
He just turns his head slowly back to center, adjusts the lapel of his suit jacket, and looks at Marcus the way a person looks at a cockroach they have not yet decided to step on. The restaurant goes completely silent. Every fork, every glass, every whispered conversation in Jungsik's soul stops in that instant. 47 tables. Not one person breathing. And Yemi is standing between them in a red dress she bought on sale, her heart hammering so hard she can feel it in her teeth, thinking the same thing every person in that dining room is thinking. This man does not know who he just hit. Yemi does not know either. Not yet. But she is about to find out, and the answer is going to change everything about the rest of her life. Welcome to Seoul and Savannah Tales. And if you have never screamed at your screen over a story, tonight is the night that changes.
Subscribe right now.
Hit that like button and turn on notifications because what unfolds from this moment is going to sit with you for days. We have to go back 3 hours. Yemi Yemi is 31 years old, and she is late. She is always late. Her best friend Simisola calls it a character flaw. Her mother calls it disrespect toward God's schedule. Yemi calls it the natural consequence of living in Seoul as a Nigerian woman who works 60-hour weeks as an account manager for a logistics company and still somehow agreed to go on a blind date tonight because Simisola said, and she quotes, "He is exactly your type. Yemi, just trust me." She does not trust Simisola. But she is going anyway because the alternative is another Friday night with ramen, her laptop, and the quiet certainty that her life in the city is built for work and nothing else. She takes the subway from Gangnam to Jungsik and stands outside the restaurant for 4 minutes collecting herself. The building is glass and clean lines and the kind of exterior that tells you the bill will be offensive. She smooths her dress. She checks her edges in the reflection of the door. She reminds herself that she survived a Yoruba grandmother's Sunday interrogations and a Korean-run office that still occasionally forgets her name is not Jessica, so she can survive one dinner.
She walks in.
The hostess takes her name and leads her to a table near the window. Seoul stretches out below them, a city that never fully sleeps, all neon and apartment light, and the Han River cutting through it like a dark ribbon. The table is already set. Her date is already seated. His name is Ji-hoon. Park Ji-hoon. Simisola found him through a mutual friend at her husband's company, a Korean tech startup. He is 34, she said. Owns his own architecture firm. Quiet but warm when he opens up. And yes, he specifically said he finds Nigerian women beautiful and strong, so don't make a face at me, Yemi, he said it respectfully. Yemi makes no promises. But when she reaches the table and Ji-hoon stands to greet her, she has to admit, very quietly and entirely to herself, that Simisola was not wrong about the face. He is tall for a Korean man, which means he is still slightly shorter than Yemi in her heels, and he looks at her the way people look at something they genuinely did not expect. Like she rearranged his thoughts for a second. Good evening. I am Ji-hoon. His English is careful, practiced. I hope I did not wait too long.
You did not, she says.
I am Yemi. I know. He smiles. You are more beautiful than the photo Simisola sent.
It is absolutely a line.
It is also absolutely working. They sit. They order. The conversation starts slowly, the way all first conversations do, both people performing a slightly better version of themselves while they figure out who the other person really is. Ji-hoon is an architect, yes, but what he loves, he says quietly, and with a specificity she did not expect, is the way Korean traditional architecture thinks about emptiness. The space between walls. He says the word myeom, which means heart or mind, and explains that traditional Korean homes were designed around the idea that the inside of a person needs room to breathe. She tells him that in Yoruba design philosophy, the compound home works the same way, that the open courtyard at the center is the lungs of the building. His eyes light up. And just like that, they are not performing anymore. 40 minutes in, Yemi has forgotten the dress, the restaurant, the pressure, all of it. She is just a woman talking to a man about architecture and home and what it means to build a space that holds people with dignity, and she is genuinely, unexpectedly, reluctantly happy. That is when the door opens. She feels him before she sees him. That is not metaphor. That is the particular physical sensation of your body recognizing danger before your mind catches up. Her shoulders tighten. Her jaw clenches. Something in the base of her stomach drops 6 inches. She turns. Marcus Williams is standing at the entrance to Jungsik Seoul, wearing a shirt that costs too much and a look that says he still believes he owns whatever room he walks into. He scans the restaurant the way he always scans rooms, looking for her, and when his eyes land on her table, something crosses his face that she recognizes from 4 years of marriage and 8 months of trying to leave him and 3 separate attempts to change her number. Possession. Not love. Ji-hoon notices the shift in Yemi's face before he sees Marcus. He is mid-sentence about a residential project in Busan when she goes completely still, and he stops talking immediately. "Are you all right?" he asks. She is not all right. She is doing the thing she taught herself to do in the last year of her marriage, the thing her therapist called grounding and Marcus would have called weakness. She presses both feet flat on the floor. She puts her hands on the table. She counts her breaths. Marcus reaches the table in 11 steps. She counts those too. There he is. He says it the way men say things when they want you to know the sentence is a performance for an audience. He is not speaking to her. He is speaking to everyone within earshot, and to whatever version of himself still believes this is an effective strategy. There she is, out here in Seoul playing like she is a free woman. Ji-hoon stands up. This surprises Marcus. And it surprises Yemi. She has been in enough situations over the past 4 years to know that most people, when Marcus looks at them that way, go very still and find somewhere else to look. Ji-hoon does not. He stands, quietly and without rushing, and he looks at Marcus directly. "I think you have the wrong table," Ji-hoon says. His Korean accent is gentle, but his voice is not. Marcus laughs. The sound is ugly.
"Man, sit down.
This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife." The correction comes out of Yemi's mouth before she decides to say it. Ex-wife. Finalized 7 months ago, Marcus. There is a document. He ignores her. He looks at Ji-hoon. "My wife comes to Seoul, and the first thing she does is sit across from some Korean man playing dress-up? You know who she is?" "She is my dinner companion," Ji-hoon says. "And I'm going to ask you to leave her alone." She watches Marcus look at Ji-hoon the way Marcus looks at anything he has decided is beneath him. It is a practiced look, years of it, the specific arrangement of contempt he developed somewhere in childhood and never outgrew. He looks at Ji-hoon's suit, his posture, his quiet refusal to be unsettled, and he makes the calculation that many men who underestimate stillness make. He decides Ji-hoon is soft. This is the mistake. "You're going to ask me to do what?" Marcus says. "I am going to ask you to leave," Ji-hoon repeats. The same even tone, the same level eyes. And that is when Marcus does it. Without another word, without even a proper wind-up, he swings. The sound of the punch landing echoes through the dining room. Yemi is already out of her chair. She does not know what she is going to do, only that she cannot sit still while this happens. But then she stops because what is happening does not match what she expected to see. Ji-hoon has not fallen. He has taken one small step to the side, not to stabilize himself, it seems, but simply to accommodate the fact that a man just hit him without being invited to.
His hand goes to his jaw.
He moves it once, side to side, checking. Then he lowers his hand. His expression has not changed. The restaurant has gone completely silent. This is a fine dining establishment in Gangnam. This kind of thing does not happen here. The servers are frozen. A woman 2 tables over has her wine glass suspended halfway to her lips. The jazz track playing through the speakers seems to understand the assignment and fades itself into the background. Ji-hoon reaches into his jacket pocket. Yemi's breath catches. But what he takes out is a phone. He looks at it for a moment, taps something once, and puts it back. Then he looks at Marcus. Not with anger. With the particular quality of attention that belongs to someone who has already decided what happens next, and is simply waiting for everyone else to catch up. "You," Ji-hoon says quietly, "just made an error in judgment." Marcus steps forward. He is not a small man. He has size and volume, and the full energy of someone who has never in his adult life faced a consequence he could not argue his way out of. "What did you just say to me?" "I said," Ji-hoon repeats, even quieter now, "you made an error." 2 things happen simultaneously. The first is that 4 men appear in the restaurant. Not from the entrance. From positions inside the room, positions where Yemi, who has been here for 40 minutes, did not see anyone standing. They move in complete silence, sliding between tables like water, and they position themselves at 4 points around the immediate space. All of them Korean. All of them in dark suits. All of them with the specific absence of expression that means they are not security guards, they are something else entirely. The second thing that happens is that every remaining member of the restaurant staff stops what they are doing and moves, quietly and without instruction, to the walls. Like they have been trained for a moment exactly like this one. Like they knew, somehow, that tonight this table was different. Yemi looks at Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon is looking at Marcus with the focused patience of a man who has nowhere else to be. "Who are you?" Yemi whispers. The question is barely audible, but Ji-hoon hears it. He turns to look at her, and for the first time tonight, the warmth in his eyes does something more complicated. It does not disappear, but something joins it that was not there before. something like a door opening that she had not known was closed. He does not answer her yet. Instead, he says to Marcus, very calmly, very completely, I am going to give you one opportunity to leave this restaurant. If you take it, nothing else happens tonight. I suggest you take it. Marcus does not take it. Marcus says something that we are not going to repeat because the level of language he uses tells you everything you need to know about the state of his understanding in this moment. And then he reaches for Yemi's arm. He does not reach it. One of the four men steps forward. The movement is not fast, or it is fast in the way that things happen very smoothly and without hesitation. He intercepts Marcus's arm at the elbow and applies what appears to be gentle pressure, the kind of pressure you would use to guide someone through a door. Marcus tries to pull free and realizes very quickly that this option does not exist. Ji-hoon stands from the table. He buttons his jacket. He looks at Marcus, who is now being held with what looks like courtesy and is quite obviously the opposite, and he says one more thing. In Korean. For words. The four men respond immediately. Marcus is walked out of the restaurant.
Not dragged. Walked.
The distinction matters because being dragged creates a scene, and these people, whoever they are, do not create scenes. They contain them. By the time Yemi processes what has happened, Marcus is outside the glass doors and she can see him on the sidewalk, and she can see the exact moment he looks back in and realizes that what just happened to him is not the kind of thing he can undo with a phone call or a threat. Ji-hoon sits back down. He looks at Yemi across the table. I am sorry, he says. That was not the evening I had planned. She stares at him.
Who are you?
She says again, and this time she needs the answer. He is quiet for a moment. Then he pours her wine.
He pours his own.
He sets the bottle down very carefully, and he looks at her the way someone looks when they are deciding how much of a door to open. My name is Park Ji-hoon, he says. That part was true. The architecture firm is also true. I did study in Busan. Everything I told you tonight about design and Myeom and what it means to build something that holds people, all of that was true. But I am also the head of the park organization. And this restaurant, he says, looking around at the room that is quietly beginning to breathe again, is one of mine. Yemi does not leave. She tells herself later that she should have left. That the correct response to finding out your blind date runs something called the park organization, whatever that means, spoken in that particular tone that means you already know what it means, is to put your napkin on the table, thank him for the wine, and get in the first cab going anywhere else. She does not do this. She sits across from him and she drinks the wine and she looks at the city through the window and she says very quietly, so, I was set up. No, Ji-hoon says. Simisola genuinely does not know who I am. The mutual friend at the company is real. The referral is real. If I wanted to meet you through design, I would have arranged it through design. He pauses. I did not know you would be interesting. The word interesting sits between them like a lit match. What do you want? She asks. I want a dinner, he says. I still want dinner if you are willing. The rest of the evening can be whatever you need it to be. And what does that mean? It means you have a violent ex-husband who followed you to a restaurant in Gangnam on a Friday night, Ji-hoon says, and his voice does not change, but it carries an edge that was not there before. It means that whatever peace you have tried to build since your divorce is not fully yours yet. And it means that I would like to help you finish building it if you will let me. Yemi looks at him. She has been looked at by men who wanted things her entire adult life. She knows the difference between a man who sees her and a man who sees something he wants to acquire. Ji-hoon is doing neither, or he is doing both, or he is doing something she does not have a category for yet. Why? She asks. Because, he says, you talked about Yoruba compounds and how empty space holds people with dignity, and no one has said anything to me in 3 years that felt like it came from somewhere real. She studies his face. And because, he adds, you did not flinch when he walked in. You were afraid. I could see that. But you did not flinch. She considers this. You noticed that, she says. I notice everything, he says simply. They eat dinner. It is, despite everything that has happened, extraordinary. The food is extraordinary, which makes sense given that he owns the restaurant. The conversation is extraordinary, which makes less sense given what she has just learned about him. He asks her about Lagos, and she tells him about Suralere, the neighborhood where she grew up, the specific geography of a childhood measured in walking distance from her grandmother's gate. He tells her about growing up in Busan, the port city, the harbor, the particular texture of a Korean coastal childhood that does not match the Seoul version of Korea that most foreigners encounter. He does not talk about the organization. She does not ask. Not yet. When dinner ends and the table is cleared, and they are both holding the last of the wine, he says, I would like to see you again. And I need you to understand what that means before you decide. What does it mean? It means the world I live in is not a simple one. It means that people who are close to me are sometimes in positions that carry risk. It means I will never lie to you about what I am or how I operate, but I cannot tell you everything either, not immediately, not until there is trust between us that has been built over time. He pauses. But it also means, he says, that what happened tonight with Marcus will not happen again. Not because I will control you, because I will ensure no one has the ability to frighten you the way he frightened you tonight. Ever again. Yemi sets her glass down. She thinks about 4 years of a marriage she entered believing was love and discovered was architecture of a different kind. The wrong kind. Walls built to contain rather than to hold. Space designed to diminish rather than to breathe. She thinks about Marcus's face when she filed for divorce. Not hurt, furious, not grieving, offended, because she was his and she had made a decision that belonged to her and he had never accepted the distinction. She thinks about how tonight, for 40 minutes before everything broke open, she had been sitting across from a man who listened to her talk about design and light and compound homes and looked like she was expanding something in him. I will see you again, she says. But I have questions. I would expect nothing less, Ji-hoon says. He walks her to the door. His men are somewhere outside. She knows, though she cannot see them. The night is cold, and the Gangnam sidewalk is bright with Friday people moving in all directions, the particular flow of Seoul after dark. He does not try to touch her. She wants, unexpectedly, for him to try. Call Simasola, he says. Tell her dinner was fine. Tell her you are safe. I will contact you tomorrow. And Marcus? He is already handling it, she realizes, from the way his eyes do not move when he says the next words. Marcus will not be a problem going forward. She should ask what that means. She does ask. He looks at her directly. He says nothing for 3 full seconds, which in her experience is always where the truth lives, in the pause before the answer. Let me ask you something, he says instead. When Marcus had his hand around her arm in there, what did you need? She thinks. I needed him to stop, she says. And he stopped, Ji-hoon says. She takes her cab home. She does not sleep until 3 in the morning because her brain will not be quiet. Not about Marcus, who she has spent 8 months learning to be afraid of and is now apparently not afraid of in the same way, for reasons she cannot fully articulate. But about Ji-hoon. Park Ji-hoon. The man who took a punch from Marcus Williams and did not fall and did not rage and did not perform, who simply waited, with the patience of someone who has never in his life needed to prove anything, for things to be handled. She is lying in her Mapogu apartment, looking at the ceiling when her phone buzzes. It is not a number she recognizes. Are you home safe? She stares at the text. Types back, you have my number now. I have had your number since this morning. He types back. I waited to use it until I knew you were home. She types. That is either very considerate or very alarming. He types. It is both. Get some sleep. She puts the phone down. She sleeps. 3 days pass in the way that days pass, when something has shifted without you fully understanding what it has shifted into. She goes to work. She answers emails. She eats lunch in the little Mapo park near the office because autumn is still holding on in Seoul, and the ginkgo trees are nuclear yellow and she cannot make herself stay inside when it looks like that. Ji-hoon texts once in the morning on Saturday. Just good morning. 2 words. She thinks about not responding for 20 minutes and then responds. Sunday he sends her a photo of a building in Insadong he is considering for a project. An old hanok being converted. He says nothing else. She looks at the photo for a long time and then writes back, the roof overhang is wrong for the interior light, and he responds 30 seconds later with a single question mark that somehow communicates he is pleased. On Monday evening he calls. Have dinner with me on Thursday, he says. No restaurant this time. I will cook. You cook? Everyone eats, he says. It would be strange if I did not. She goes. She does not know what she expected from Park Ji-hoon's home, but it is not this. It is a converted traditional house in Bukshin Hanok village, the kind of space that should feel like a museum, and instead feels like someone lives here in the fullest possible sense. There are books everywhere. Architecture monographs and Korean novels, and at least 1 volume on West African vernacular design that she knows did not appear there by accident. Ji-hoon cooks doenjang jjigae and she tells him about the first time she made egusi soup in Seoul and catastrophically underestimated how hard it would be to find the right kind of crayfish, and he laughs, a real laugh, the kind that changes his face completely. They sit on the floor on cushions because his dining table is covered in blueprints he has not moved, and he seems genuinely unbothered by this domestic imperfection, and she likes him more for it. He tells her about his father. Not everything, but some things. Enough that she understands the weight he carries. His father built the organization from almost nothing. His father died 3 years ago. His father's last instruction to him was, do not let the fear of what we are prevent you from being who you are, and Ji-hoon has spent 3 years trying to understand what that means. She tells him about her mother's voice on the phone the day she filed for divorce. The silence before her mother spoke. The weight in that silence. Her mother saying, very quietly, I knew. I just did not want to be the one to say it. They sit with that for a while. And then his phone rings. Show me. He looks at the screen. Something changes in his face. Not fear. Ji-hoon does not do fear, but the particular focus of someone receiving information they were not expecting, and that requires immediate attention. He stands. Excuse me one moment. He moves to the other side of the room and speaks in Korean, quietly, but she can hear the cadence shift, the way his sentences become shorter, the way his responses stop being responses and start being instructions. He comes back. What happened? She asks. His face has closed. What happened? She asks. Marcus, he says. She sits up straighter. He took something, Ji-hoon says, from someone connected to my organization, not knowing what he was taking. He found out where I live, followed one of my men here, and he stole something he thought was leverage. Yemi feels the blood drain from her face. What did he take? Ji-hoon looks at her. His voice is steady. He took a phone. The phone contained nothing that could harm me, but it contained your number, and the photos you sent me this week.
Her mouth goes dry.
What photos? The Hanok you asked me about in Insadong, he says. You sent me 3 photos from your walk. Your face was visible in the reflection of one of them. She did not notice that. She would not have noticed that. Marcus would. Marcus catalogs. He knows you are here, Ji-hoon says.
She does not panic.
This is new. 8 months ago, sitting on the floor of her Mapo apartment with this information, she would have panicked. She would have called Simisola and cried. She would have checked her door locks and slept with her phone in her hand. She would have started the mental arithmetic of whether it was time to go back to Lagos, whether Seoul was safe, whether safety was even a permanent destination, or just somewhere you were between the last time and the next time. She does not panic now. She looks at Ji-hoon and she says, what does he want? Ji-hoon sits back down. He is watching her with that quality of attention she has learned to read as his version of care. He wants you back, Ji-hoon says. He called my man after taking the phone. He had no idea whose phone it was. He thinks you are seeing someone he can intimidate into letting go. She almost laughs. He does not know. He does not know anything, Ji-hoon says. And that is what makes him dangerous in a different way. He is not careful enough to be afraid of the right things. What are you going to do? He is quiet for a moment. This is not, she has learned, hesitation. Ji-hoon does not hesitate. It is calculation. The specific stillness of a mind running options.
Nothing tonight, he says.
Tonight, I am going to finish this meal with you. And then I am going to drive you home and make sure you are safe. And tomorrow, Marcus Williams is going to receive some clarity. What kind of clarity? The kind, Ji-hoon says, that men like Marcus only understand when it comes from someone they cannot argue with. She wants to ask more. She also, for a reason she cannot completely justify, trusts the answer she has already received. This is the thing nobody tells you about moving from fear into something else. It does not feel like a decision you make. It feels like weather. Like the temperature has been changing for weeks, and one morning you simply notice you are no longer cold. They finished dinner. It is good. The doenjang jjigae is extraordinary and she tells him so, and he says her agusi soup catastrophe sounds more interesting and she promises him that next week she will make it if he can find her the right crayfish, and he says I have suppliers for everything, and the way it comes out makes them both laugh and then sit with a double meaning quietly. He drives her home. His car is what she expected, dark and understated and expensive in the way that costs more than flashiness ever could. He walks her to the door of her building. He does not touch her. He has not touched her, she realizes, except for handshakes and the very small weight of his hand on the small of her back guiding her through restaurant doors. He is being careful with her. She is not sure how she feels about being cared for carefully. It is so different from her experience of being cared for, which mostly involved being cared about loudly and badly. Good night, Yemi, he says.
Good night, she says.
She goes inside. She does not check her door locks twice. She does not sleep with her phone in her hand. She lies down in the dark, and the last thing she thinks about before she sleeps is the fact that somewhere in Seoul tonight, Ji-hoon is either making calls or not making calls, and either way something is being arranged, and either way she is, for the first time in 4 years, not the one who has to arrange it. In the morning there is a text from Ji-hoon. Good morning. His person picked up the phone, and it is on its way back. Marcus knows now who he called. She stares at this text for a long time. She types back, what happened when he found out? 3 dots. Then, he is on a flight back to Lagos, departing Incheon this afternoon. He will not be returning to Korea. She puts the phone face down on the mattress. She picks it up again. She types. Did you hurt him? The answer comes back in under 10 seconds. No. But I was specific about what would happen if he came back.
He believed me. She sits with this.
She has spent 4 years being afraid of one man and exactly 0 years having another man arrange, with what appears to be the same ease he applies to restaurant menus and architectural blueprints, for that fear to simply stop existing. She does not know how she feels. She knows how she is supposed to feel about a man who can make other men disappear from your life in 12 hours. She knows the appropriate concern. She holds it, examines it, puts it on the table beside everything else she knows about Park Ji-hoon. And then she picks up her phone and calls Simisola. Who is he? she says, before Simisola can speak.
Huh?
Simisola says, I told you. The mutual friend said he has an architecture firm, and Simisola. Who is he really? A long pause. You know how Han's company has that contract with Park Holdings? Simisola says slowly. Yes. And you know how Park Holdings is in all those buildings in Gangnam and Itaewon and Mapo?
Yes.
And you know how Han's company has never had a single contract dispute in 3 years, even though every other company in that space is constantly in litigation? Simisola. I did not know the whole picture, Yemi. I promise you. I just knew he was wealthy and connected, and that he had specifically said he wanted to meet a woman who was not from his world. A woman who had built something of her own.
Why would he say that?
Because Simisola says, from what Han hears, he has been surrounded his entire adult life by people who are in his world. Who want something from his world. Who see him through his world. And apparently at some point he decided he wanted someone who would see him differently. And he looked for that through a blind date. Stranger things have happened. Simisola says carefully. Yemi, do you like him? She looks at the ceiling. I do not know what I feel yet, she says honestly. But do you like him? She thinks about the blueprints on the dining table. The book on West African vernacular design. The way he said "miam" and meant it. The way he looked at her when Marcus walked in, not with alarm but with the specific attention of someone deciding what the situation required. Yes, she says. I like him. Then Simisola says very gently, figure out the rest as you go. She goes. 2 weeks pass and then 3 and Seoul slides deeper into winter. The ginkgo trees going bare. The first cold arriving properly. The Han River gray under the November sky. Ji-hoon and Yemi have dinner 4 more times. Once at a galbi place in Mapo where nobody knows who he is, and they eat off a tabletop grill, and she burns her fingers, and he catches her hand in his without thinking about it, and neither of them mentions that he is still holding it 20 minutes later. Once at her apartment, where she finally makes the agusi soup with the crayfish he sourced from someone who clearly owed him a favor, and he eats 2 bowls without ceremony and asks for the recipe, and she says absolutely not. It is a family secret, and he looks delighted. Twice they do not eat at all. They walk. The Han River at night. Bukshan in the cold. They talk about everything, and some things they circle around, and some things are there in the space between them that neither of them has named yet, but that both of them can feel. He has not kissed her. She has not kissed him. He has not lied to her. She has not pretended she is not afraid of certain things. They have built something careful between them, something that feels like the architecture he described, built around the idea that empty space holds people with dignity, space left on purpose so that there is room to breathe. And then the other shoe drops. It always does. It comes at the worst possible time, which is the only time things like this ever come. She is at work. It is a Tuesday afternoon in late November, and she is in a meeting about a quarterly logistics review that has already run 40 minutes over, and she is thinking about the restaurant Ji-hoon mentioned wanting to take her to this weekend when her phone buzzes under the table, and she glances down. The name on the screen is not in her contacts, but the message is in English, and it says, Miss Yemi, you should know who you are spending time with. And then there is a link. She does not open the link in the meeting. She waits until she is in the bathroom, door locked, tap running, standing over her phone the way you stand over something you're not sure you want to pick up. Then she opens it. It is a news article. Korean wire service. 3 years old. The headline, in translation, reads, Park organization implicated in Incheon port irregularities. Witness missing. Investigation ongoing. She reads it twice. Then she closes it. She looks at herself in the mirror. She turns the tap off. She goes back to the meeting. She does not tell Ji-hoon. Not immediately. She carries the article for 3 days the way you carry information you do not know yet how to sort. She is not naive. She has never been naive. She went into this with her eyes open, or as open as they could be given everything she did not know, and she told herself that she understood what the world she was walking into looked like, theoretically. An article about port irregularities and a missing witness is not theoretical. She calls Ji-hoon on Thursday evening. I need to ask you something, she says. Ask, he says. She tells him about the text. The link. The article. The silence that follows is 3 seconds. Long for Ji-hoon. Who sent it? He says. I do not know. Read me the number. She reads it. He is quiet again. Then he says the name Gong Myung-soo, and she hears in the way he says it that this name is not new, that this person is not a stranger to him, that whatever this is. She reads it. He is quiet again. Then he says the name Gong Myung-soo, and she hears in the way he says it that this name is not new, that this person is not a stranger to him, that whatever this is, it has a history she has not been given yet. Who is that? She says. A man who does not like me, Ji-hoon says. A man who has not liked me for a long time. And the article? Is accurate, he says. And incomplete. The same way all true things reported from one angle are true and incomplete. The witness, she says. He is alive, Ji-hoon says. He is in Jeju. He is alive and he left because he chose to, and he contacted me 6 months ago, and he is not missing, he is retired, and I can give you his phone number if you want to call him yourself. She is quiet. You would do that?
She says.
He says, Yemi, you can have every phone number, every document, every piece of information I am able to share. I told you I would not lie to you. I did not say the truth would be simple.
She sits with this.
The person who sent you that article, he says, is trying to do what Marcus did. Use information as leverage to move you. He sent it because he knows that you are important to me and that you are the kind of person who will take it seriously. How does he know I am important to you? Because Ji-hoon says I have not been important to anyone in 3 years, and I am apparently not very good at hiding it when something changes. She closes her eyes. She thinks about what it is to be used as a lever, to have your intelligence and your careful thinking and your capacity for doubt turned into a tool against you by someone who bet correctly that you would investigate rather than dismiss. She has been underestimated her whole life. Being correctly estimated and having it weaponized feels worse.
What does he want? She asks.
Gong Myung-soo. What does he want? Access, Ji-hoon says. To something I will not give him. He has been looking for a pressure point for years. He has found one now. I am not going to be a pressure point, she says. No, Ji-hoon agrees. You are not. Then what do we do? We, he says very quietly. She realizes she said it.
She meant it.
We, she confirms. He takes a breath. On the phone she can hear Seoul through his windows, the city noise, the particular frequency of a Friday night beginning to build outside his Buckshin house. We meet with him, he says. Together.
He is not expecting that. Why would that change anything?
Because Ji-hoon says he sent that article assuming you would run. Men like him always assume women run. He has no strategy for the version where you do not.
She thinks about this.
What time?
She says.
He sets it for Saturday evening. A restaurant in Yonggu, neutral ground, as far as these things have neutral ground, which is not very far, but is the form the thing takes. She spends Saturday morning not being nervous, which is itself a kind of decision.
She is not performing calm.
She is choosing it, the way her mother taught her that you choose things that are hard, with both hands, all the way, no half measures. Ji-hoon picks her up. He looks at her in the doorway of her building and says nothing for a moment. Then he says, you look formidable. She says good. The restaurant is quiet when they arrive. Gong Myung-soo is already there, which is itself a statement, a man who makes others wait and arrives first to the meeting he arranged. He is older than she expected. 60s. Silver hair. The kind of face that has not been kind for a long time. He looks at Yemi the way certain men look at women in rooms they consider theirs, with mild surprise that she is present and a fundamental failure to update his model of the situation. This is a mistake he will not fully recover from. Ji-hoon makes introductions in Korean. She understands most of them now. 6 weeks of daily practice, an app, and a tutor Ji-hoon arranged after she mentioned she wanted to learn. Gong Myung-soo responds without looking at her. He says something in Korean that means, roughly, this is a conversation between businessmen. She does not need to be here. Yemi responds in Korean. She says, and her accent is not perfect, but her grammar is, and her vocabulary is specific, and her tone is her mother's tone, the one used for men who have made the error of underestimating what is in front of them. I am afraid you have made an incorrect assumption about who needs to be at this table. Gong Myung-soo's face goes very still. Ji-hoon's face does not change, but something in the line of his jaw tells her he is pleased. The conversation that follows is the most uncomfortable 90 minutes of Yemi's life, and also the most clarifying. Gong Myung-soo had a plan. The plan was information, pressure, removal. Classic. He laid the groundwork, sent the article, waited for the falling apart. She can tell from the way he keeps adjusting his responses, no contingency for the version where she sits down at this table in this restaurant, in this city that is not her city, and holds the line with the particular calmness of a woman who married a man who tried to make her small and survived it. She is not small. Ji-hoon handles the business. She does not pretend to understand all of it. The structure of what is owed and contested between these two men, the history that predates her, the thing Gong Myung-soo wants that Ji-hoon will not give. But she watches the room. She notices the moment Gong Myung-soo realizes she is watching. She notices when he tries, once, to direct a comment at her that is designed to create a wedge, an implication about what Ji-hoon is and what it means that she is with him. She says, very calmly, you sent me an article to make me afraid. I read it. I asked Ji-hoon about it. He told me the truth. You should factor in that this strategy has already been attempted and has already failed. Gong Myung-soo looks at her for a long moment. He leaves. No agreement. No resolution of the underlying business conflict. But he leaves. And in the parking structure afterward, Ji-hoon stops walking and turns to face her, and he says, with the particular weight of someone saying a true thing, I've sat across from that man 15 times in 10 years. That is the first time he left first. She says, he did not expect me to be there. No, Ji-hoon says. And he did not expect me to speak Korean. No, he says again. And he did not expect, she says, that I already knew what he sent me and had already decided it was not enough to move me. Ji-hoon looks at her. And in the parking structure light, which is not romantic light and was not designed for this, she sees on his face something she has been watching build for 6 weeks, something he has been holding back with the specific discipline of a man who decided a long time ago that patience was the most powerful thing he had. He says her name, Yemi. She says, "You are still not going to kiss me in a parking structure." He laughs. It is the real laugh. The one that changes him. He says, "No. We're going somewhere better." He drives her to Bukshan. They walk up the narrow stone lane to his house in the full cold of the November night, the city below them amber and breathing, the sky above them clear and very far away. He opens the door and inside it is warm and there are still blueprints on the dining table and a book she lent him 2 weeks ago is face down on the couch with a bookmark in it and the home looks like her life has been fitting into it, quietly, piece by piece, without either of them fully marking when it started. He turns around. He says, "I have been careful with you." She says, "I know." He says, "Because you came from something that was not careful. Because you spent years in a house built wrong. And I did not want to be another person who touched you before you were ready." She says, "I am ready." He says, "Are you sure?" She looks at this man. Park Ji-hoon, architect by training and by something deeper than training. Head of an organization she does not fully understand and does not fully fear. A man who took a punch from Marcus Williams and did not fall and did not rage, who simply waited, with the patience of someone who has never needed to prove anything, for the world to catch up to what he had already decided. She says, "I have been sure for 3 weeks. I was just waiting for you to catch up." He kisses her. It is like everything about him, unhurried. Exact. The specific warmth of a person who has waited long enough to know what they want and is no longer interested in being anything other than fully present for it. She does not think about Marcus. She does not think about the article. She does not think about Gong Myung-soo or port irregularities or the specific complicated architecture of the life she is walking into with both eyes open. She thinks about what Ji-hoon said the first night. About the empty space inside Korean traditional homes. The room left on purpose so people can breathe. She has not breathed like this in years. But there is something else. Something she does not know yet. Something that will surface weeks from now, in a conversation she is not expecting, when Ji-hoon tells her calmly and without drama that Gong Myung-soo has made a new move, and that the move involves someone from her past she trusted, someone who knew things they should not have known, someone who has been in contact with Gong Myung-soo for longer than she realized. And in that conversation, she will have to decide, not whether she trusts Ji-hoon, that question has already been answered, but whether she is ready for what trusting him fully actually costs. That conversation is coming. She does not know it yet. Tonight, she is warm and chosen, and held in the home of a man who built his entire life around the idea that the space you leave is just as important as the space you fill. Tonight is enough. If this story found you tonight, you already know why it hit the way it did. Because you have been in a room with someone who made you feel small. Because you know what it costs to choose yourself when everything around you is designed to make that choice feel impossible. Because somewhere in you, you're still looking for the version of home that holds you with dignity instead of walls. Hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a comment telling me which moment broke you open. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that the wrong ending is never the final chapter. Seoul and Savannah Tales is just getting started. Part 2 is coming. And you are not prepared for what we find out about who Yemi really trusted. See you there. Show more.